Welcome everyone to the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Board of Directors regular meeting. Today's Thursday, May 25th, 2023. I apologize for the delay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Madam Board Clerk, would you please call the roll? Make a roll call for the director.
Director Sailors,
Present.
Weber,
Present.
Sheets. Present. Director Gould is absent this evening. Wood.
Here.
Director Rice is absent this evening. Jones.
Here.
Costa.
Here.
And President Clark.
Here. Next, I'd like to Director Chief, would you lead us in the pledge to our flag?
I pledge allegiance
To the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Next, we go to Metro Cable announcement. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. Meeting is also webcast at Metro 14 live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replayed on Sunday, May 28th at 2 p.m. and Monday, May 29th at 6 p.m. on channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14. Next, we have public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
No speakers.
No speakers, right? We're having.
Art, do you want to check with our virtual audience?
Sure, we have about 40 plus of them, so give me a second.
Right.
Okay, attendees, you now have the ability to unmute yourself if there's anything you'd like to present to the board at this time. And no response.
Thank you. Here and then we go on to consent items. Board members, you've had a chance to look at the consent agenda, consent items.
Mr. Chair, I move consent. Thank you.
Second.
Was motion by Director Jones and second by Director Costa. Madam Board Clerk, would you call roll, please?
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets. Aye. Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
and Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to action items. First item in the under action items is the service delivery proposals, changing distribution of FDMS and MMPs. Deputy Chief Adam Mitchell will be doing.
Thank you, President Clark. Good evening, directors. I'm Deputy Chief Adam Mitchell of Over Operations. It has my name on it, but this is a proposal brought to you all by the executive management team here for Metro Fire. So they're standing behind me. We'll be available to answer questions that pertain to their individual respective or responsible areas. So I'll start off with the background. Back on the board meeting night of May 3rd, you as a board gave direction to return to an upcoming meeting, tonight's meeting, with specific proposals that outline an incremental change of some of our current fire department ambulances or FDMs, the transition over to Metro Medic Program medic units or MMPs. We also had some other direction that you gave us to focus in developing the proposals as far as reducing strain and mandatory overtime, specifically at the firefighter rank through this summer and fall season, maintaining or providing increased service to the community and being as close to cost neutral as possible while also providing options that represent an investment in the service delivery growth over the next fiscal year. Staff has worked on a number of proposals to bring before the board for consideration and approval, and we've engaged closely with 522 leadership throughout the process. And below are those options developed into 3 separate and distinct phases for your review and action tonight. So currently, just as an overview, we have 15 fire department ambulances, 5 MMPs, and 1 BLS pilot MMP unit deployed in the field for a total of 21 Metro Fire Transport units. This number does not include the AMR units that we have currently under contract, nor the units, the 2 additional units that we'll bring on July 1st under the new contract. It also doesn't include the 3 in-service reserve medics at station 27, 55, and 63. So specifically now to the phases, the proposal tonight in front of you. Phase 1 involves moving 2 FDMs to 2 MMP units. Moves the members of the pilot BLS unit into the ALS MMP unit staffing to help us staff those 2 units, the 2 new units during the first part of the fiscal year of 23-24. The actual timing of how we're able to make that happen is going to be dependent upon our ability to hire folks, as well as get them trained to deploy them into the field. That's why you don't see a date associated with that. However, the beginning of the fiscal year is our goal. This will result in a net of 12 firefighters being added to our pool. So that will be 4 per shift firefighters, which will help us minimize those brownout potentials and or mandatory overtime that we discussed at the firefighter rank. The net result of that first phase would be we would go to 20 total Metro Fire Transport units in the system, which would be 13 FDMs, 7 MMPs, and not continuing with the BLS transport unit project. So that's phase 1. Phase 2, it will be implemented once phase 1 is complete. Again, you see no date there because we want to make sure that we do this in an incremental fashion. We're able to attain the success that we're looking for and then move on to the next phase. Phase 2 is moving 2 additional FDMs over to MMP units and placing a squad unit into service. We'll hire additional MMP members to create a pool in that program as well to assist with constant staffing and ability to backfill for time off or otherwise folks that aren't able to work. Again, I think it's important to recognize that the timing to do this will depend on our ability to hire, purchase new equipment and get it here and put it into service like the squad unit that we don't currently have. But it is being built or that we have on order. And any facility upgrades or any improvements we have to do as well have to be completed. The result of this phase is an additional 6 firefighters that will move into the pool. So we're adding 2 more per shift to add to those pool numbers to further impact the mandatory overtime at the firefighter rank in a positive fashion to lower people not being at work when they want to be, being at work when they want to be at home. So that's where those folks will go. And then that gives us 6 per shift total. And then that will also put 1 additional first responder unit into service. So it helps us to alleviate those issues with the lower acuity medical calls, like our Squad 24 project that we've been working on through the SAFER grant to further impact and make our first responder units out in the field more available, decrease time on task, as well as decrease call volume impacts. Let's see. So at the end of that, the total units still remains at 20 as far as Metro Fire Transport units. There's no net change there. We stay at that 20 number. And it ends up being 11 FDMs and 9 MMPs. So phase 3 would be implemented once phase 2 is complete, if we choose to go that route, which and the mid-year budget projections are also complete, which indicate our ability to pay for it, as well as the apparatus equipment being able to be purchased and any of those facility upgrades and such. This phase would include transitioning 2 more FDMs over to 2 MMPs and adding an additional first responder unit, either an engine or a squad, putting that in service. So this would add an additional first responder unit to the system, and it would keep our Metro Fire Transport unit at 20 with 9 FDMs and 11 MMPs. It would also add additional firefighters to the pool, and dependent upon what option, if phase 3 is chosen to move forward by the board, would add other folks over to the first response units as well. So there's a little bit of a variability there depending on what the board decides to do as far as action taken there. So for the fiscal impact, I'm going to turn it over to CFO O'Toole to go through that part of the proposal.
Evening again, Chair, board members. The fiscal costing here is in the three pieces, consistent with what Chief Mitchell just described. There's the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So you should have this document here, and there are some on the table back there as well. So phase 1 is 7 MMPs, bringing on board 7 MMPs, and there's the cost there. The year 1 cost assumes an August 1 start. So there are some assumptions throughout this document. That's one of them, is that stands up pretty quickly, that we get them on board by August 1. Year 2 is your full year cost. So for the 7 MMPs is almost 1.1 million. And we put them on a medic. Down below that, the 7 MMPs from a current BLS unit will be transferred over to the medic. Will be directed to the medic. And then there's 12 firefighters who will be taken off those 2 medics and moved into the pool. So you get a considerable savings there. Year 1 savings for 11 months is almost 2.6 million, and in year 2 it's over 2.8 million. And that pool transfer, you'll see that in each of the phases that follows, and the savings that's generated by doing that. It is not insignificant whatsoever. So phase 2, we're now adding 14 MMPs, same idea, but phase 2 starts on October 1. So that costing for an MMP is for 9 months instead of 11 months with the August 1 start date. The full year cost there is 2.2, and we put them on 2 MMP medics. We have 6 firefighters added to go to squad complement, so that the 9-month cost is almost 1.1. The full year cost is 1.5. We had 4 MMP paramedics, and that's 462,000 for the 9-month cost and 616 for the full. And they actually go to the pool. And in the pool, we've moved 6 firefighters off medics into the pool and 4 MMPs into the pool. And the savings we get for 9 months is 1.8 million. And then for year 2, the full year is 2.3 million. Those are firefighter costs, firefighter savings. Because anticipate, even when the MMPs go into the pool, they're making it available. So firefighters won't have to come in and work the overtime. So that the 10-person pool savings is costed at the firefighter level. And then you have the green box at the bottom of that page there, which is phase 1 and 2, the totals. So phase 1 and 2, which is the positions, is you have the savings of 188,000. And year 2, you have very close to cost neutral here, just over 135,000. So very tight there. And then you add in the squad cost, the cost for additional squad, 246,000 that is for the first year of the vehicle. That's for all the comms equipment, other equipment, IT, MDCs, every other piece that goes in there. That is cost out there. And that data was compiled in March. So it's pretty accurate, pretty recent, I should say. The year 2 costs, a lot of those equipment costs are now out of the books. You paid for them, but you do have ongoing finance. So we anticipate financing whatever vehicle we're talking about tonight, whether it's an engine, a squad, or medic. We anticipate financing over 5 years, which is our standard practice. So if you flip the page over, we get into phase 3, and the 14 MMPs. This assumes an April 1 start date. So really just 3 months of the upcoming fiscal year. And then year 2 is your full year cost. So depending on where you want to focus your attention, the 14 MMPs, 3 months of bringing them on is 539,000, almost 540. Year 2, almost 2.2 million. We add them to the medics. Adding 6 firefighters for the additional squad complement, and then 6 firefighters are going to the pool. That's transfers to that's your pool savings. Your 6 firefighters full time, not having a full year of overtime costs. So that savings of 1.4 million full year for 6 firefighters. And then in the end, there's an engine option. So that first one was a squad option. What if we do an engine instead? So that's replacing the firefighter cost under the squad. You just replace it with, okay, well, now we're going to have 3 firefighters, 3 engineers, and 3 captains. There's the cost there, the increments of 3 months or a year. And then 9 firefighters would go into the pool, because if the total change is 12, you only need 3 for an engine. Obviously, you've got 9 that could go to the pool. The other way, if you have 6 on the squad, you have 6 go to the pool. So that's the cost difference there. And incidentally, that's a late adjustment. I had originally costed this out in the staff report thinking that there was going to be 2 firefighters on an engine. When I was corrected, no, that's not the case. So the numbers are a little different there. And you'll see that at the bottom. So the squad option total with the squad, year 1, 608,000, year 2, 2.463 million. This is for all phases now, all phases with the engine option. With the engine, 939,000 for year one and 2.8, almost 2.9 million in year two. And that's the summary of the fiscal summary.
So, again, that was the fiscal impact. I'll finish up and then we'll take questions, but the recommendation piece, obviously, it's noted there that you have assumptions of dates that was used just to give you an idea of what the cost might be. What those dates actually are will be subject to a lot of other things. But to get you to a costing potential in the first year, that's how those dates were used. I think it's important to recognize as the board that anything that we do is going to be reflective in future fiscal years as encumbrances of the budget moving forward. So those numbers are important to look at those full year costs moving forward in the next fiscal year. So there's that piece of the pie there. So just as a recommendation, we're recommending at this point for the board to adopt phases 1 and phase 2. This maintains that balance of that fiscal accountability. We'll take in that incremental approach to make sure that as we're doing things, we're making sure that they are meeting the standards and the costs are recognized of what we actually are incurring or recognizing in savings. So that we go through that in a stepped fashion and we don't go too fast, the crawl, walk, run, if you will. The timing also considers the workload and time requirements of implementing the changes within one fiscal year, because it does go and takes a lot of other things in the background to make it happen with staff and doing the hiring and such. We also recommend that the remaining phases be considered based off of what the board action is. Once the standards of cover document and that strategic planning special meeting that we just went through, that decision process comes into play this next fiscal year. And as you gave us direction to continue to move forward on that, adopting those first 2 phases allows us to start implementing that process as we move forward in the years down the road. So we have more of a stepped approach in what we're doing, moving into using data and those types of things to make those decisions. Again, that allows for our data-driven deployment decisions based on the call types and the actual calls we're responding to. Again, we want to make sure we recommend that confirming the mid-year budget is going to support further expansion before carrying out additional phases. And I talked about the timing already extensively. And then finally, as we look down into what next looks like, we talked about the strategic plan and the standards of cover and using data to drive our decisions. We want to make sure that we consider that there are operational deployment costs. There's also potential and needs to be addressed through that process of the strategic plan on a staffing level that not only focuses on operations and response, but also the professional staff piece, the side of the house, which that strategic plan that we all talked about at the special meeting encompasses those pieces as well. I think also just to reference the metrics, how are we going to measure this? We're not just a one and done. It's not going to be here tonight and then we're gone. Our recommendation is that we will report back to the board a minimum of every 3 months on how we're doing with this change in deployment, or more often if substantial changes or updates are needed to be able to make sure you have the most recent updates as we do this through this next fiscal year. 4 examples of some of those metrics are how the impact is occurring on our potential brownouts or the mandatory overtime numbers, our projected costs versus actual cost updates, and what we're actually recognizing is another metric, ability to hire and training and how we're hitting those timelines and when we're getting them out to deploy in the field, as well as our ability to purchase and receive and place in service any additional equipment, apparatus, or facility updates or upgrades that we need to do. So with that, that is our presentation. Again, this is an action item, so we're recommending an action taken by the board based off of adopting phase 1 and phase 2. We're happy to take any questions as everybody standing here behind me is ready to talk. So I get some water.
Yes.
No questions. Thank you for that. I did write some stuff down because I want to acknowledge all of the hard work on the labor side and the management side that has gone into this proposal. And I appreciate the questions that I had that have been answered. I see the absolute benefit for our department. However, I do have some concerns regarding the medic transition. I know the call volume has doubled in the past 20 years. And while I completely understand and support adding squads and engine companies to assist our currently overworked engine and truck companies, my fear is the level of paramedic care from our first arriving companies is going to suffer. I'm worried that over the next 5 to 10 years, when seasoned medics start to promote and retire, that the level of care may start to decrease due to having a primary first responder paramedic having little to no ambulance experience. On top of that, I'm worried that the normalization of deviance will take effect and then we won't even notice subpar service delivery is being provided. During my previous time serving in different emergency departments in surrounding counties, I saw this very thing happen to non-transporting fire departments. So my challenge to the EMS and to the executive staff is to have legitimate accountability for underperforming paramedics and extensive EMS training, reevaluations. You mentioned this phased approach and how you're going to bring it back. So that was one of my suggestions, is doing the Plan Do Study Act, PDSAs, and reporting back to make sure that if we need to course correct, that we can to make this sustainable. I think that my neighbors deserve it and my family deserves it. And I acknowledge that we have a problem right now and we need to do something right now. And this is the best solution. However, there are consequences for the decisions that we're making. And I just don't want the public to not have a say. Thank you.
Thank you for your insight, Director. Director Will?
Thank you. I've got a couple questions. First is, with your phase 1 and 2, the individuals you're talking about, are we using the 12 that just came out as part of this, or are we talking new hires entirely?
So the process of moving them off of the current FDMs would be coordinated through 522 through a bid process. Seniority bid process is what we're anticipating. We have had a pool in the past and that's how it has worked. And so that would be our recommendation. And those are some of the things we would need to work out. The folks that are brand new have a regimented, structure that they go through in probation, and they would have to go through that probationary process. I don't know exactly who could end up bidding these positions, but I would not anticipate them being junior positions or newer employees in the department, just based off of historical perspective. We've had before.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay. And then the other question I had, you had mentioned squads and engines, and I haven't heard specifically 102. Are you talking about 102 being the engine to reopen in phase 3?
So to that point, that is one of the areas that we are looking at. However, that's that piece about our standards of cover, identifying the risks associated with the specific areas in the district, where those are located, to be able to come up with the best solution. What the engine would be or how it would be deployed would be in alignment with that strategic plan and standards of cover that we're utilizing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director
Thank
Costa.
you, Mr. President. So to follow up on the standard of cover, we talked about, was that November when this board would see that again?
Yeah.
So then we have 2 phases that would take place August,
Yeah.
October. And then we would get the standard of cover, and that could affect as we move into phase 3, right?
Yeah, and before we talk about STEM, just to recognize that this process that we're talking about here tonight is to identify and to deal with the current short-term problem, Director, and then that standards of cover would be that next.
To help us
how
get to the
moving
long-term
forward and
piece
making
itself.
Decisions, but I'll turn it over to you.
So our intent is to publish a standard of cover by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
I think what I was describing to the board on our workshop was implementing a process of taking the board through this annually.
Okay.
And we'd like to begin that in November with the data from standard of cover, and then applying it to the staffing plan, the CIP plan, and then taking the board through that process leading up to preliminary budget every year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I just want to make sure as we follow through some of these dates, kind of where we're at in these phases. And as you indicated, these phases get us to addressing the current issue as it stands today. So I have another question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Dave, can you come back up? Yeah. Because we flew through the numbers here on the back part. I just want to make sure I understand this bottom here, where it talks about phase 1, 2, 3 totals. Do you mind walking me through it again,
Sure.
so I understand?
So that green box on the back of the second page there is totals for all 3 phases put together. You've got the squad option. In phase 3, you can either go with a squad or an engine. Those are the 2
That's what-
totals.
Okay,
So under squad option, it has the cost for phase 1, 2, and 3. And then it has the cost of the squad itself, which is the same number we used in phase 2. And then the totals. for year one and year two. And remember, year one is a partial year. So it includes,
Partially, but it includes all three phases
yes.
as I'm reading it here. Okay, I just want to make sure because I know we're talking about two phases itself. I just want to make sure I understood the number. So
Yeah, this is all three
Yeah,
phases.
we want to make sure you saw the total of all of them, as well as.
What
the
it would look
ongoing
like.
costs, But the recommendation based off of some of us are in the finance and audit committee.
Mhm.
And then also this other piece of, you know, where we're gonna land and the timing and all those directors.
The recommended costing is the green box in the bottom, of the first page.
okay, just want to make sure I understood. Thank you. Thank you.
Director Wade, you had a question?
Yeah, quick question. I know with the engine option at the bottom of page 2. That contemplates buying a new engine, right?
Let's see.
Yeah, that would be part of that purchase and then the financing and ongoing.
Is there any consideration given to using one of our current reserves? Such that number could be reduced?
I know that Chief Wagman is on and he's probably driving and Shay's not here. However, I will tell you that if you talk with fleet about the status of our reserve fleet, that is very, very highly not recommended to do based off of the current mechanical status of those and our expected usage of them throughout the district for just maintaining our first outs that we're at right now. It's considered, yes, but the cost of the new engine needs to be considered because the reserve fleet won't be able to stay in that front line apparatus position for a long time. Chief Wagman, I saw you unmuted, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I am in a position to talk. Chief Mitchell is spot on. When we look at our current reserve fleet, we're short on apparatus and we're still behind on our apparatus replacement plan. So in order for us to adequately prepare to add another Type 1 engine, we would have to purchase that, as well as look at our current fleet to make sure that we have the reserve apparatuses available to utilize in the event that new Type 1 engine goes down as well. So we're looking at all of those pieces. And as of today, we would absolutely need to purchase another apparatus in order to accommodate the addition of another Type 1 engine.
So this apparatus is considered for purchase into phase 3 is in addition to the apparatus that we talked about under the CIP at 5 o'clock this evening. Okay.
Yes.
And then lastly, the box, at the bottom of page 1, the phase 1 and 2 totals, that total with squad at the very bottom, those numbers include or consider the savings that are calculated in those two phases, right?
Shortly, yes,
Okay.
that is true, and that's that for that timeframe as projections. And again, that's why that as we recognize actuals, we would need to come back and update you because I'm sure there's costs that we haven't thought about, but there's maybe also savings, and we want to make sure we keep close tabs on that moving forward.
And so the phase 1, 2, and 3 totals at the bottom of page 2, those two columns don't show any numbers in parens. So are the savings in the above tables already included in that?
So the savings, the second page that you're looking at, those have already been included. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It rolls up across each one is what it comes to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Director Jones?
Thank you. I have a few questions about this chart here. Now, how much does a new engine cost, generally speaking?
I have that here.
We're
Jim.
just over 800,000.
Okay, thank you. And then where is that 800,000? In the green.
Financed over 5 years, so you're just seeing the first year, the 1/5 of 800,000 plus the equipping the vehicle.
Okay, well, I'm getting it. That's not delineated here. We're looking at the green, page 2, bottom of page 2, the green box.
Mhm.
Year 1, year 2. How is the cost for the engine accommodated in this?
So the 523,000, it's all built in. I didn't give more detail on the spreadsheet, obviously, but it includes 1 year of financing plus equipping the vehicle, plus support staff costs too, that is also baked in here.
Okay.
Those are the main. That's the main.
Including the cost for additional medics, cost for additional squad, if we go that route?
The staffing is reflected.
No, I'm talking about the apparatus.
Actual apparatus are in this portion as they roll up.
Which portion?
However, as you're seeing these bottom numbers, like the 930, 9607,
Yes, sir.
it's the first year cost to add the squad and the engine for that amount. Financed over 5 years that covers the labor and equipment costs of putting it in service.
What I'm getting at is the real cost for this is 3 years more. That's not on here. So the cost is,
Check out, it's the year, yeah, you're still committing year over year to those.
So,
additional costs. Is that right?
that's an
Five-year
additional
plan.
cost, future cost
Yeah.
that is not really readily identifiable here.
Yeah, if you look at the year two there, Director Jones, that is.
Got it.
something that is, anticipating that the finance costs ongoing, additional labor costs are in that next year. But that's what I was saying about anything we do here tonight has that future impact to future budgets on encumbering funds that we need to be aware of as we take action.
All right, now I agree, we need to be able to look at this very closely. The other item of this is, I'm concerned about the actual cost numbers that will be involved here. Unfortunately, there seems to be a little bit of a throwaway line at the very bottom of this and of the report. It says additional consideration by the board is recommended to increase overhead and professional staff positions that will support the growth of services and the MMP program in the future. Where is that cost accounted for in these charts?
It is not. So.
Okay, how much is it?
We don't know. And again, remember what we were talking about is we're trying to recognize everybody's need to start working on this problem today. But as we start to get to a planned process, we're gonna need to be able to bring this to you in steps so we can explain all those pieces. So today, what we did for comparison purposes is to roll up a year-by-year cost. So the board can make this decision here tonight. And then past that, we will systematically bring these details to you as a part of the annualized process to answer your those very specific questions.
It will, if it goes nuts, we have to reevaluate and revamp.
I think, and I'll speak for everyone behind me here, we feel comfortable in phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay,
What we want to do is get to a mid-year point and start to shore up some of these numbers and our understanding before committing to a phase 3.
no, I can appreciate that. I'm concerned about, I don't want a commitment for 3, 4, year 3, 4, and 5, and we still don't know. Now, one other specific question, then a general one. In phase 1, do we hire 7 new employees? I see,
So
Chief, I'm just asking, is that the,
there is a number that we will hire. However, that's if we talk about projections. We've had a couple folks transition to paramedic in the meantime since Friday night. We've also had somebody that is not going to stay with the district. There will be a hiring number that we have to actually work on the what of what that looks like when we get to that point, but there will be a hiring. And
So, as Chief Mitchell was mentioning, the program's dynamic. Good evening to everybody. Good to see you all. The program's dynamic, and we know there's members in the MMP program that are upgrading. For example, this week, we upgraded 2 EMTs to paramedics. We've also had 2 of our members find other opportunities outside of the district. So as the program ebbs and flows, what you have in front of you is the model of what we want to build, but the actual numbers in the academy could literally change next week.
okay,
And so for Chief Bailey's world and HR and the hiring, we're looking at what the need is to keep a ratio of enough paramedics to make sure we have ALS ambulances, while also looking at the pool of applicants we have. And so it's a dynamic situation. And I think it speaks a little bit to Director Sheets and your concerns is that's part of why this crawl, walk, run approach is for us to make sure that we're giving that training and starting these people with likely the least amount of experience and making sure they're starting on that right foot. And we have a plan for that. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just, yes, I'm trying to figure out how many new bodies are we gonna have on this program? And aspirationally, it's 7 for phase 1, and aspirationally, it's 2 for phase 2.
Yeah, so every MMP medic that we add is 7 employees. So you probably ask, well, how do you have an odd number of people? And it's the way the shifts align. So when we talk about adding 14 total people. But with some transitioning internal, it may end up being 13 or 12, or if we have extra people that have applied and maybe we're anticipating an upgrade of a paramedic. And we have people that are applied in background and ready to go. But to staff 2 MMPs, you need 14 people.
I can
Okay,
give you the
so this
numbers
is
as of
one
today,
for the
Director.
one.
Oh, real-
Sorry?
I just, and Chief Nikki didn't know I had this sitting here,
Go
but
for it.
as of sitting here today, without the email that we received today, that somebody is looking for another opportunity, we were at 38 total folks in the MMP program. To do phase 1, we need to be at 49 total, so it's 11 people today. But based off of what Chief Nikki just said, the number is gonna fluctuate and who we actually hire.
And I can appreciate that fluctuation, situation. Now, for my big general question, but I would like an answer. What does success look like?
For phase 1 and 2, success looks like decreases in mandatory overtime at the firefighter rank. It means adding a first responder to the system to help address our reliability, time on task, and call volume numbers for the currently highest impacted companies that are out there. And then getting us to a point where we can make strategic decisions based off the strategic plan and standards to cover, and looking at all of the revenues and budgetary items that are impacting that moving forward.
Those are exactly the areas we do need to look into.
Can I just,
How many?
I have one thing for that.
Yeah, oh, of course. Go ahead, chief.
For every pool firefighter that we add from a medic to the pool, it reduces your callback hours by 2,920 hours.
That sounds like a year's worth.
It's 1 year, so, which is why you get $238,000 in savings, but that's 2,920 hours less hours that our employees are gonna have to work to fill those gaps.
So how many? With this idea of decreasing mandatory overtime, decreasing overtime costs. It seems like we need a point in time, and it might just go past October 1st for phase 2, focusing on phase 1. We need enough time to be able to really evaluate this. And obviously, historically, it seems like the big crunches are during the summer months and fire season, traditional fire season into September, October. I don't know that we're gonna have enough time to really evaluate phase 1. Well, assuming we have October 1st, phase 2, right backed up to phase 1. We're gonna need more time on phase 1. I really want to make sure this works. And that we do see a reduction and less call volume for all the individuals and units. That's hugely important, but we have to make sure that that really happens. So the timeline, August, September, October, 3 months, I don't know that that's going to be enough for us to really get a handle on how effective this is. Do we reduce 1 callback a shift? Do we reduce 8 callbacks a shift? We need to make sure that all these machinations indeed work in our favor. So I'm very much for trying phase 1, but we need to have some sort of time period where we use it as an evaluation. And then maybe we go in even more on phase 2. If phase 1 successful, maybe we even up phase 2. But we need to look at 1 to evaluate the fiscal impact. We still don't know about these other costs. These are out here hanging. And in our finance committee, we heard about dipping into reserves for recurring costs. We can't keep doing that. All right, so that's my speech. I want phase 1 to be successful. We need some time to make sure it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We have no further questions. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Director Sheets, motion.
Second.
Second, Director Weber. Please call the roll.
Point of information. So this motion is to implement.
Phase 1 and 2.
Staff recommendation.
Okay,
Staff.
now
Yeah, phase 1 and 2.
is but October, even August 1 and October 1 are floating dates?
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Director, the motion is to make changes 1 and 2 within 1 fiscal year. So the August and October dates are targets. that
Yes.
They developed for our presentation. The
Thank you
motion is a 1 year.
for within the fiscal, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, any further questions? I mean, we already have a motion and a second on the floor, so please call the roll.
Director Savers,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets. Aye. Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
for
Chief
the-
Green will do the ops report. I'm gonna try to make my high school graduation.
All right, thank you.
Can I make a statement?
Certainly, certainly. Chief.
First of all, I want to thank you. You've been working on this with us for a number of weeks now, almost months, and you gave us direction, which was very solid. That direction allowed us to kind of shrink the target down to a set of proposals that I think answered your concerns. Director Sheets, I hear loud your concerns about quality of care. And we will ensure that the quality to our patients and their families remains what it is today or higher. We'll work on that for you. Thank you for all of us. And as you saw by the big group here, this proposal touches literally every aspect of this organization. And I want to thank all of those who contributed. And I especially want to thank Vice President Cole and Local 522 for contributing wonderful ideas, for being good partners in the development of this. And it's my sincere hope that not only do we soften some of the workload and the mandatory callbacks and the brownouts that affect our people that we serve, but it improves over time. And so I just want to say thank you to, I guess, the whole department from top to bottom. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to the second action item, the disclosure of material expenditure. General property liability insurance, fire agencies insurance risk authority. Brad, I'm gonna let him say his name again because I'm gonna do this thing up. From USI Insurance Broker.
Yes, thank you. Brad Svenningson, USI Insurance. I'm your commercial insurance broker. And tonight we are going to talk about your package program, your autos, property, liabilities that you have. And you've been with SDRMA for, I believe, a little over 10 years, maybe 15 years. And the rates and the premiums have, the last 3 or 4 years have really gone up a lot. And so we started meeting with FARA like 3 years ago and trying to get our feet wet. And we've had some really good meetings and we got some good traction this year. Ironed out a few details and anyway, I'll follow along with this, you all have this sheet, right? So, well, in summary, so they've given us a quote of $2,264,952 compared to what you paid last year with SDRMA of 3.6 million, a little bit more than that. And I'm not going to have their quote till probably mid-June, and we need to make a decision by June 1st. So I've asked them for, do they expect to drop their premium in half this year? And the answer was it's probably going to go up 20% more. So that puts it at 4.2 million. So that's and it's pretty apples to apples as far as, we're just trying to fill in the gaps or wherever it doesn't make sense, like cyber, for example. FARA admittedly says they don't have a very good cyber component, which is something that we really need. But we were able to get a side quote on that, and I'll talk about that next time I'm here in June, I guess. So anyway, we're going to the second page. So here's the efforts as far as marketing. We really have two players. I mean, there's Allied Risk will play ball, but they don't want to be on like the first 2 million, which that would mean you'd have to have a $2 million deductible, if you will. And that's not something that was attractive. So a little bit about Farah. They've been in business for 35 years. They've never had an issue with their limits that they offer, meaning they didn't run out of money in their pool. So the actuaries did a good job of making sure that what they had coverage wise was sufficient to cover all claims that were turned in. The deal is with pools, and it was with SDRMA, you have to make a 3-year commitment. So we tried to get a guarantee of like, well, don't raise our rates more than 25% for, you know, the first couple of years. They wouldn't do that because they've had issues before where, you know, they took somebody on and then they had a horrendous year. And so they wanted to increase their premium, rightfully so, I guess. So into the comparisons, SDRMA is 5 times the size as Farah. So I don't know if it's that good or bad. And in a sense, SDRMA carries 5 times the limits, which kind of makes sense. SDRMA is all sorts of different public entities, and Farah is just fire authorities and fire districts, which I think is a good thing. Anyway, that's a positive, I believe. The biggest claim that you guys have had in the last 10 years was 485,000. And that was an auto accident, maybe 5 years ago. The most you would have under this would be 11.5 million of coverage, even though it says 10 million in here, you actually would have 11.5 if it was a horrific accident. So that puts things in perspective as far as, boy, is this enough coverage or not? And, you know, you never know with insurance and lawsuits and that type of thing. But if you look historically of what has happened, it seems to make sense. We're also going to look at getting quotes for an excess policy in case you do have a really bad year. We run out of limits. So I don't have a hard quote right now, but I will in a couple of weeks. And I expect it for like an extra 5 million, it'd be 300,000. So if we look at Farah's premium and buy a cyber policy for 90 grand, buy the excess policy, which you don't have to buy, for 300,000, that gets us to around 2.7 million, which is going to be still 1.5 million less than SDRMA. So that's kind of the summary on that. And see if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Svensson?
Yeah, I'm confused about one thing, if I can.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we need to make a decision by June 1st on who we are going to sign up with, even though we don't have a quote, even though they may be 20% higher. We don't have a quote from SDRMA.
Correct. Yeah. And they know that. Yeah. You're probably the biggest component of their program as well, so. They may have the thought process of going, well, boy, we have to change everyone's premium if you guys drop out. Because, you know, you're a good chunk of the overall premium. I don't want to
My
guess.
confusion is, but why won't they give us a quote by the time we need to vote on this?
The board, they're having a board meeting on June 10th. They're not going to approve any rates till June 10th.
That makes no sense to me. So, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. That answers it. Do we have any other questions of?
I have a quick.
Director Jones?
Okay, under the topic, it says disclosure of material expenditure for the fiscal year. And okay, so the June 30th date that's referenced here doesn't have anything to do with what you just said.
Yeah, all your policies renew on July 1. But unfortunately, we need to make a decision with this
Thank you.
prior to June 1.
And any further questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation. to adopt staff's recommendation.
Okay, motion
I'll
by-
second.
Motion by Director Sheets, second by Director Jones. Please call the roll, Madam Board Clerk.
Director Sailor.
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Sheets. Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks for having me.
Hey, next up, fiscal year 2022 State Homeland Security Grant Program,
Yeah.
SHSGP Award. Aaron Castleberry, Administrative Analyst. Thank you.
Good evening, directors. Tonight, we bring to you an award from the fiscal year 22 State Homeland Security Grant Program. On November 15th of last year, we submitted 5 applications for 5 separate projects. They're outlined in the staff report here, just under 200,000 for the final phase of our station access control project. 185,000 for some hazmat response equipment. 38,000 for some TEMS ballistic protective equipment. $58,830 for 3 low flow inflatable rescue boats. And just under 100,000 for the deployment of a regional incident command and response mobile application. So we were notified in February that 4 of our projects were not being recommended for funding. But that one was being recommended for funding. And then subsequently on May 16th, we did receive an award notification for our $199,990, the final phase of our station access control project. So the fiscal impact of that is obviously that amount will be added to our preliminary budget. There is no match requirement, so the district that will be fully funded by the grant. Just something to note is that subsequent to finding out that not all of our applications were being recommended, we did receive and you previously approved a UASI grant that covered one of these projects, which was the tactical EMS. So we were able to find some additional funding for that. So the recommendation tonight is for the board to accept this fiscal year 22 State Homeland Security Grant Award.
We got some. Yes, sir. Good questions.
I'll make the motion, but I just want to say thank you, Ms. Castleberry, for all you and your office does. Bringing in free money, some very good things. So thank you.
We'll try.
I'll make the motion on staff's recommendation.
Well,
If
we had any questions before we had it, no question, okay.
Motion.
Yeah, you made the motion. Director Wood made the motion. Who did the second? Director Jones. What I'm more clear, please call.
Director Saylor,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, that brings us to the last action item tonight. Equipment lease financing contract for fiscal year 2022-2023. And that's CFO O'Toole.
Good evening, board members. For this action item, staff are seeking your approval of the lease financing contract for capital expenditures budgeted in the current fiscal year. The district's 22-23 mid-year budget includes financing for vehicles and equipment purchased over a 5-year period. Purchases over a 5-year period. Financing for those items is normally secured near the end of the fiscal year when funds are actually needed. When the district solicited financing offers, we received 6 responses, which is a typical response for this type of financing. After reviewing the 6 proposals, staff recommends the district enter into an equipment lease agreement with JP Morgan Chase Bank based on their providing all the requested information with the lowest overall costs and terms acceptable to the district. The estimated total equipment cost to be financed is $4,924,128. If you concur, the apparatus and equipment already approved in the budget will be added to the master lease schedule with an associated payment schedule over the next 5 years. The interest rate for the proposed financing is 3.43%. Biannual payments over the 5-year term of the financing will be approximately $541,000, with the first payments due at the end of next fiscal year. Staff recommends adopting the resolution to authorize the fire chief or chief financial officer to enter into an equipment lease with JP Morgan Chase Bank. And before I close, because she's here, I want to thank Marie Jones. This is her project every year. Thank you for this. And with that.
Do we have any questions of Mr. O'Toole? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, please.
Director Weber,
Second.
Director Sailors, looking this way, Director Sailor, was the second.
Please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets. Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, with that, that finishes our action items. Let's go to reports. President's report, I have none. Fire chief's report, interim chief Haverty.
Thank you, President Clark, members of the board, and my colleagues in the department, and citizens. I'm pleased to announce that we have some new hires. Brian Ono and Jared Hodel were hired as fire inspectors, and effective May 15th, we badged them and swore them in just recently. And we have Marty Rickberg joined us Monday morning, 8 o'clock sharp, a little bit earlier than that, as our new board clerk. And I'd like to thank her for joining and thank Sherry for working with her this week and in the future weeks and mentoring her. Thank you for that. We have Jeffrey Comer is hired as a fire mechanic effective Monday of this week. We have some recruitments. Human Resources is accepting letters of interest from the rank of captain paramedic for EMS day captain and EMS shift captain assignments. Final filing for both positions is 4 o'clock on June 2nd, next Friday. And from our non-probationary firefighter paramedics and paramedics, that for the position of Metro Medic Program 23-1 drill instructor. The drill instructor position will be assisting drill master Fader with the upcoming 23-1 MNP Academy class. The academy will start at the beginning of August and run 5 weeks in total. These would be the individuals that you just authorized. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate Battalion Chief Tony Peck for being selected to fill the Emergency Planning Safety Day Battalion Chief assignment effective June 5th. And Battalion Chief Ross Carello has been reassigned to his suppression position effective June 4th. The district would like to thank Chief Carello for his dedication and commitment while working in emergency planning and safety. We had just on some other items, miscellaneous, we had a remarkable swift water rescue that you may have seen on television Tuesday evening in the Cosumnes River in Rancho Murieta. I think we worked with the City of Folsom Fire Department on that rescue, and from the looks of it, that young man was in a dire need of some good firefighters that could get him out of that position. So thank you to the crews for doing that. We have already been focusing on the items from your special meeting on the strategic planning workshop. And that update and tonight's presentations were an indication of that body of work coming to fruition. So I appreciate your help with that. This month, we've held 2 sessions of reframing organizations in which the political frame was presented and discussed. Next month, we finish up with the symbolic frame, and then we have a couple of months on leadership. And Metro staff and some of you, board members, met with both Sacramento County and as well as the City of Citrus Heights elected officials and some of their staff to discuss topics of mutual interest to both of our organizations. And those types of meetings, of course, will continue throughout the year on a quarterly basis. And last Friday evening, we welcomed the 12 new recruits who graduated from the Fire Academy. And we thank you for many members in our organization who taught various elements of that academy, and a special thanks to our training division and to the Recruit Academy cadre for their hard work and leadership on that. I'd like to thank Battalion Chief Cole, the crew of Engine 109, and many of you who came and participated in past Director Matt Kelly's celebration of life last Saturday. I greatly appreciate your support in honoring him that day. Earlier this week, I presented with Kyle McDonald at the Arden Arcade Rotary Luncheon, and we just talked about, great things happening in Metro Fire and some of the issues that we face and how that interacts with community as well. We have really hope to see everybody this Saturday at 10 from 10 to noon at Station 68 for the open house over there. I think we have station tours, some hands-on CPR, and they whatever else that they have planned for us from community relations. Congressman Amy Barrett will be visiting the Zinfandel training site next week, Wednesday, May 31st at 11:45. We're planning a tour and a briefing for the congressman and his staff. He's most interested in the EVOC course, as he is helping us with some funding for that. And any of you that are available, who'd like to see and participate, you're welcome to attend. And then the next Saturday, just as a reminder, following, not this next one, but the following June 3rd, we have a special board meeting, a closed session to discuss fire chief selection items beginning, I think we begin at 9 a.m. Is that right? 9 a.m. Yeah. We'll provide some treats in the morning. That concludes my report, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir. All right, moving on with Chief Mitchell, operations was Chief Green is gonna do his report as Chief Mitchell had to go to graduate.
Yes, thank you, President Clark, directors, Chief Haverty, Chris Green, Assistant Chief in the Operations Branch. Standing in for Chief Mitchell tonight. Just 3 quick updates since we last met. To piggyback off Chief Haverty's comment on Fire Academy 23-1, which I know many of you are at. Graduated last Friday. You may or may not know there's within each academy class, there's an informal competition on who gets their first fire. And that was won right off the bat by Bisha. I believe within 15 minutes of starting the shift. So at least one of the 12 dirty dozen has that monkey off their back.
That's cool.
This last Monday, we officially transitioned the wildland season. Although we've had quite pleasant weather, I think you might have seen the grass in our district change from green to yellow very quick with very tall growth this year, which is obviously a concern for us with flame lengths. Since we've had such a mild spring, we did kind of stagger how we're doing fire season this year. So we do have the augmented response with our suppression crews. The helicopter starts tomorrow. Air operations goes into service primarily for the water threat on the American River with the flows being so high this year. And then on June 1st, we're going to put the dozer in service. So we'll be fully augmented coming up here pretty quickly. This board chambers will host our annual cooperators meeting with CAL FIRE coming up on June 6th. That also has been delayed a little bit due to the late start, but that's when we generally get the latest briefing between them and the National Weather Service on what the outlook is for the statewide fire season, which we'll bring to you shortly. And lastly, obviously the training division is very busy. You may or may not know this week, Sac Metro Fire is hosting AutoX out at Zinfandel. This is a extrication on steroids type class. It has, I think, somewhere between 40 and 50 vehicles out there. Right now, the great thing about this is this was really a grassroots class that started many years ago by our members within the organization. We hired a contractor. There's been a large train the trainer process going on, and we have approximately 10 of our own members right now that are either the instructors or learning the trade as we go. So I can't describe in words what goes on out there. Pay attention to social media. I know folks in our PA office are going to get some great photos out for you. That's all I have from operations tonight, unless you have any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
I just have a comment. Captain Wilborn's been doing a great job getting those out on media. I was looking at that. My wife showed me her Instagram when they were doing some of the extrications, and there's a cement truck on its side. It actually looked like a lot of fun to be there.
Yeah, it's I mean, not to compare and contrast classes, it's one of the best that goes on every year here.
Captain Wilborn's doing a great job getting the word out.
Yeah. Pass that along to him.
For those of us that are not on social media.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I'm an hand at home. What, can you repeat? When
Repeat which part?
Yeah. When it is and.
Currently right now.
Oh, it's going on right now.
Yeah, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Is that correct?
Oh,
Finished up
tomorrow.
today.
I can catch it tomorrow.
So we'll get pictures to you. How's that?
All right,
Yeah.
that'll work. I can make it tomorrow.
They're not doing it tomorrow.
I'm sorry, correct me. It ended today? Okay.
Ended today. Oh,
I apologize.
well, I'll take the picture.
I'll still get your picture. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, with the big weekend coming up, has there been any discussion or is Metro aware, are they lowering the flows at all? Or are we gonna have a rafting season? And if
So good and bad news. We got noticed by Sac County OES that the Bureau of Land Reclamation increased the flows out of Folsom Dam significantly 3 days ago. We have seen that rise in the American River. They are not reducing it over the weekend, to our knowledge. We are generally the last to know in that chain. However, there's kind of a good and bad. So we're not expecting a very high number of public rafters on the river because the raft rental companies that are based out of Sunrise are not opening this weekend, purely out of safety hazards. So that's tough on their business. It's tough on the recreation side, but it's better for the emergency response. However, when we do see busy raft weekends with water flows, it's generally not folks that go by inner tubes at Walmart and Target and hop in the river. So the Special Operations Battalion Chief Grant Russell met with all of the regional maritime asset public safety folks just last week. So that includes us, City of Folsom Fire Department, Sacramento Fire Department, County Parks, Sacramento Sheriff, Sacramento PD, and every asset is going to be available for the waterway this summer. I'm sorry, at least this weekend. So we are fully prepared. I think what we have going for us are some mild weather temperatures this weekend, but obviously we're on high alert. We don't see these flows very often, and it's very concerning on a weekend.
Tim White for recruitment. I would like to give you a brief report on what he's been doing, what he would call his space. Thank you, Tim. Oh, yeah, 3 to 5 minutes. So I'll try and keep. My perspective as district's recruiter and maybe forward facing and having conversations with folks that want to be a part of our organization. When I took this assignment, my perspective from the beginning was that for the most part, I'd be working on some of our advertising efforts, working on some of our forward focused assets, if you will, try and organize efforts in outreach and really going out and finding folks like paramedic students and talking to them and telling them why working here is a good thing. Easy for me. I came here in 2005. Specifically, I came here purposefully for what Metro Fire offered for me. I worked private ambulance and in an environment that Director Sheets described, and I like the way Metro Fire does business. So it's easy for me to regurgitate that story. Fast forward to today, and my perspective has changed quite a bit about what my job is and what my job entails, primarily from being out in the recruiting circuit, I call it. In that environment, I found myself getting outside of the fire service and networking with other industries and organizations that are seeing similar challenges. And I'm trying to take note of trends and bring that back to the decision makers here at Metro Fire. Today, I consider it my responsibility to represent not only Metro Fire, but also our industry to actively search for solutions to what has become a global challenge, right? I know some of you on DICE are still employed and work in this space. Today on a global scale, the way that we view work is different than it was just 5 years ago. We all know that, let alone a generation ago. Today, every industry that is in the position of asking an employee to physically come to work are facing similar challenges to us. Industries are either adapting or failing, and a lot of workforces are overworked in the meantime.
I recently had the opportunity to participate in a panel discussion that was focused on the hiring needs of our industry that was hosted by Valley Vision, organization in our area. One of the questions that they asked the panel was, have you noted any roadblocks to applicants or to diverse applicants accessing careers within your organization? My response in part was, the required qualifications are by far the biggest roadblocks. Staffing an all risk, all hazard, all emergency mitigation workforce is inherently challenging, but our communities deserve exactly that. Everyone's individual crisis deserves the attention of a highly trained team of professionals. That being said, for us, compared to some of those industries that I get to hang out with in some of these recruiting events, recruitment should be a relatively easy effort. We can offer a job that people want. Right, we have that. We compensate very competitively. And we spend a little bit of time and effort getting the word out. That combination, people come and compete for that job if they have the qualifications. Qualifications is one of our challenges. There just isn't enough to go around, right? I travel up and down the state going to paramedic classes, and that's what we run into, right? I just did a quick search in the back. There are currently today 57 fire agencies that have an open recruitment for firefighter and firefighter paramedic. I lost my thing here. There just isn't enough. Fire service, including us, is not immune to the challenges of supply and demand. The actions that we can take are either to support the supply or decrease our demand. My answer to that is to make supporting the supply my #1 priority in workforce development. I'm not calling myself a recruiter, but a workforce development coordinator for Metro Fire. To accomplish that, my plan can be described in 3 simple steps, and I'll sum that up with those. Step 1 is outreach. Gone from the perspective of thinking that I can go and find paramedics and convince them to come and work for Metro Fire. We need to be in the space as an industry. We're having some success getting partners in this, getting more people into that training, more people, inspire more folks to go and pursue that training, be successful, and for us to be in a space to demonstrate what success looks like. To demonstrate that it's not a pipe dream, that being a firefighter isn't this thing that's unobtainable, that it's a career, a rewarding career that's attained by everyday people that take the needed steps to be successful. Step 2 is supporting pathways and providing guidance, a continuation of step 1, provide opportunities, being in the space. This process of acknowledging that young people today are less inclined to accept the perceived risk when it comes to their pursuit of a career. The fire service has struggled with this change over time, and just my 18 years in the fire service, I've seen this. The perspective of hand-holding versus mentoring depends on where a person maybe is standing. Building partnerships are key to pathway support. Partnerships that we're building with the educational system primarily. You guys are well aware of our Explorer program, CTE pathways, ride-alongs, our mentor program, getting interns back into the stations. Supporting all of those efforts. We're getting back into that business. These are all good examples of that mentoring and guidance. Step 3, again, the easy part is recruitment. That's the changes to our recent MOU that resulted in approximately $1,200 a month increase to a firefighter paramedic that's applying for a job at Metro Fire, or $1,500 a month for a single role paramedic applying for a job at Metro Fire. Are, in my perspective, as an end user that gets a paycheck from Metro Fire, the greatest steps that we've taken in workforce development or recruitment in over a decade here at Metro Fire. Thank you for that. That concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Do we have any questions?
No, sir.
Yes.
Mr. White, thank you so much for that. Those great details. Good to hear all that. Are we doing anything, or do we have any contacts in the military to help reach those people? And not just for firefighters and paramedics, but the military also has people that are trained in economics and office administration. They have a great resource of helping build our non-sworn staff too. So are we doing anything with those agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, I think that our military, all of the branches of armed services, are the most well-funded and most diverse workforce development platforms on the planet. I've spoken about our partnership with the Army PACE program. We work with organizations like Work for Warriors, just to kind of try and get the word out. We do a little bit of work for that with, our region has a regional diversity outreach committee that's a committee underneath the committee or the regional fire chiefs. I sit on the subcommittee of that subcommittee, if that's a thing, for veteran outreach. That's a heavily used part of our mentor program, getting veterans or people in that position in contact with other veterans. Yesterday I was at UC Davis for an EMS event and had a long conversation with a Marine that wants to be a firefighter. And in that space, it's really about me educating myself about the opportunities for them and offering as much guidance as I possibly can. 3 of those military platforms, branches, I guess, the Army, the Coast Guard, and the Air Force have an opportunity to train both EMTs and paramedics. There is work, so the biggest thing that I can do in the PACE program with the Army is meet recruiters and give the recruiters information of what success looks like to the people that they recruit. It's an effort to have them work as recruiters for us. I met one of our soldiers that's eligible. He just became eligible this year. He finished whiskey school and he's looking at going to paramedic school. I'm hopeful that we'll see some fruit of that labor. It's a good partnership. They have a lot of resources and they want to see us find success because they want to be able to tell that story and advertise. If you think we're having trouble, they call it make a mission, right? A Army recruiter, for you guys, they have to make about 500 contacts to get one soldier. So yes, long answer, I apologize.
No, it's great. It's good to hear that. Thank you.
On that note, the 68 whiskey, there is talks that the Army is going to elevate the training of the 68 whiskey, that's a combat medic, from EMT to paramedic level, which will be good for our industry, be good for everybody's industry. They have an opportunity to do that. It's just right now it looks like re-enlistment or being connected to some high value assets for the military.
Thank you. Very good. I don't think we have any more questions for you. Mr. White. Thank you.
That's the end of my report.
All right, thank you, Chief. I know that's right. Okay, next we go to Support Services Report. Deputy Chief Wagman, it looks like he's remote. Is he gonna do a remote?
Yes, if you can hear me, I'm ready
Yeah,
to go.
there you go. We can hear you.
Perfect. Well, good evening, President Clark, Board of Directors, Fire Chief Haverty and staff. Tyler Wagaman, Deputy Chief of Support Services, coming to you from a campsite in the Bay Area. 2 quick updates for you. One on the facilities front, or actually a couple on the facilities front. Station 101 and 105 kitchen reconstruction projects are still underway. We're waiting on permits. So for our partners with Sacramento County, if you're hearing, we're waiting on permits. Yes, we're waiting on that final piece of paperwork so we can get both contractors working on these direly needed projects. So we've done everything on our part. We're just waiting on those permits and we hope to get them very, very soon. Next item is we just completed the formal bid process for Station 50, their dormitory privacy project. For most folks that have worked at Station 50, they know it is the sleeping arrangements are currently a dormitory. It's a very open area. We want to add some much needed privacy to that area, and the project that we went out to bid for will give them just that. So we're nearing the award bidding process. We hope to get you a recommendation by our next board meeting so we can get that project underway. On the fleet side of the house, Assistant Chief or Shay Purcell, our fleet manager, was successful in obtaining 2 chassis, which has been a challenge these days to obtain. He was successful after over a year's search to replace one of his mobile trucks as well as one of our facilities trucks, which are both in dire need of replacement. So congratulations to him on that front. Also, our fleet manager, as well as representatives from our engine team, are going to be going back to Appleton, Wisconsin next month, and just a couple of weeks here for our final inspection for our 3 new Type 1 engines. We hope that these engine companies will hit California, hopefully within our fleet division, within some point within July. And shortly after that in July, we hope to do a final inspection on one of our brand new aerial trucks back there in Wisconsin and as well. And we hope to see that here in August or maybe shortly thereafter. That concludes the support services report. And unless you have any questions for me, that's going to be it. I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend. Thank you.
You as well, Chief, and we don't have any questions, Audrey, just stay safe. Thank you. All right, next we finally, we get to Metro Fire's firefighters local 522 report. And that would be Battalion Chief Matt Cole.
Good evening. First, I'll start with Director Wood. I think it was you at the special board meeting that asked what the chances were we could get firefighter White to give us an update on recruitment in 3 to 5 minutes. I said 0% chances in 3 to 5 minutes, but I'm and I was right. Because when you make your question, so
He'll do better next time.
but I think that fits with the theme of the evening. So before I kind of jump into some stuff that I'd like to speak to and share there. I'd like to thank all of you for your commitment over this past weekend to remember Matt Kelly and join us as the services, as Chief Haverty had pointed out. Also at that academy graduation. So it's kind of that cycle of our Metro family life, if you will, saying goodbye to one while we welcome 12 others to the organization. At that graduation, Todd Norris spoke to us all. And what a lot of you probably don't know about Todd is he's probably the only probationary firefighter that I know of that has a 5-year pin. And that's because Todd started in what was our SRP program as a BLS provider. And I was at Station 23 and honored to be part of the crew that he first worked with. He spent a lot of time putting himself through school, becoming an ALS provider, really wanted to be part of this organization, went through an injury, persevered, put his head down, rolled his sleeves up, helped us get through COVID, offered a number of services to the men and women of the community and to our family. And now I was super happy to see Todd walk across that stage. And Todd represents what we need on a bigger scale, which is people who want to be part of this organization, are committed at that level. The problem is, just like Tim said, there's not a huge army of Todds out there who are qualified or have those first steps taken. So what we have been trying to do as a labor group with our partnership with management is to project out on what do we need to do to work together to create a career development path, kind of like Tim was speaking to there, to where if qualifications are the challenge, how do we get people in the organization and have them offer service at a level where they can provide for their families and get trained up to meet that ALS requirement to be able to either provide service in our EMS division or in a suppression. So to the comments made tonight about this deployment, specifically to Director Sheets' comments, concerned about level of care and what does that look like and experience of paramedics, totally with you. We all have that same concern. But we need people here that we can help train up, and I'm a training guy. I couldn't agree more. We're going to commit resources and we need to be constantly aware of that, checking back in. But we need a pathway for those folks. And because of what you all provided to us and Tim to go out to recruit, to put BLS providers in our MMP program, and the work schedule we've created with a 48-hour work week, an opportunity hopefully to go to school as we explore some of these partnerships with colleges and CJAC and those accredited bodies. We believe that we have all the pieces on the table. So your concerns are valid and heard. But just last week, we had a captain run a code on an engine company because his firefighter and his engineer were BLS. And so if we continue to bring BLS folks directly into the suppression side, eventually we won't have ALS care coming off of our first responders. And so we have taken creative steps because we are a special district, because we had a lot of these pieces on the table. We have a head start against other departments and districts within the state to recruit and come up with career development pathways and make these good jobs so people like Todd can come in and we can get them to the level where Todd got himself. But we can't count on everybody being as solid as Todd. So and to Director Jones's comments or questions about recruitment. And I know the chief officers up here did a good job talking about how this is going to be fairly fluid. What you got presented tonight was a little bit of a carryover from conversations from months gone by, and really a collaboration over the last couple of weeks. And the dynamic is so fluid that just yesterday I heard we have 2 folks taking on other opportunities, just as Chief Mitchell shared. And even our recruitment pipeline is a little bit variable because of who's still in the pipeline. But phase 1 and phase 2 need 10 BLS providers and 16 ALS providers, and those folks are in our pipeline. And there's a little bit of fudge numbers there too. So phase one was about getting help now. Phase two was about getting help in the fall. We will work together to figure out how we blend those and come back to you. Because both of those phases are about bringing balance in the organization as a whole, having extra folks in the ambulance deployment, extra folks in the suppression deployment, keeping companies open, managing mandatories, and increasing first responder coverage. So there was a lot there, and I got like, I wanted to insert myself into that conversation, but I wasn't part of that presentation. So I just wanted to throw some of that out there because they're all great questions and very valid concerns and things that we are working together to bring you answers on. And I don't want it to be lost on the group that when I came into this spot, before we all started working together, when I was at Battalion 5, my last day at Battalion 5 before transitioning here, we had 13 suppression medics, 2 single role medics, and contract for 6 or 7 AMR 12-hour shifts. We have increased all of that in excess of 25%. So the time on task for our ambulances is problematic still. But with what you supported to change the single role to the MMP program and to putting them on a 24-hour shift and the compensation package to retain people, we have seen that the MMP deployment go from 2 to 5 or 6 a day, like Chief Mitchell shared. We took suppression medics from 13 to 15 with the SAFER grant and other deployment tools that we use. We expanded the AMR contract to be 10 units come July 1st. So that is a huge win. 25 to 30%, depending on how you slice that pie up, is huge. And thank you for that support. And what we're looking at is bringing not that same percentage of support, but a similar level of help on some percentage to the suppression side by putting squads and looking at the engine and 1 or 2 stuff. So on our side, we appreciate all the effort that has gone in. We have been working hard, and I said it to my membership that we got on the video. We didn't come this far just to get this far. This is a phased approach of a first stab at this so that we can continue to provide the high level of ALS care that our community deserves. And in that, there will be training, there will be oversight, there will be challenges. If there was a huge army of ALS providers lining up, that Tim could just usher into this room, we would be having this conversation. But as Tim said, like there's just a challenge. We're all fighting for the same small group. So thank you again for your support on that. I gotta pull my notes because that wasn't all I was going to talk about. I'm just rambling here. I was blown away today going out to the auto X class. That level of dedication that we have, there was 12 cadre members who put countless hours, many on their own personal time, to be able to bring what is, I guess, what do you call it, Chris? Extrication on steroids. Like that is pretty aggressive and still an understatement. Like the cars hanging on the sides of buildings, cement trucks, tractor trailers, people from all over the state came to take that class, and even into Nevada. And our members grind out there. Jason Watts and his cadre, they do so much, and I cannot express how important it is for us to continue to support them and elevate that support. Those are the kind of things that put Metro Fire on the map, that people have come to expect from us. And honestly, we waited a little bit from that in the past, and seeing that today really brought me such a huge sense of pride in what our men and women are doing. There were over 30 students out there that obviously showed a huge commitment to the fire service and their care they offer the community by putting in those 3 days. Those 10 stinky people on the back wall back there came directly from that class because they cared to be here for this meeting because of the importance of it. And I just want to thank all of them for doing that. And I want to continue. I want to thank the chief for supporting at the level we did, and continue to task everybody in the room to bring even more support, because like I said, they do a lot of that on their own time and their own dime. And then before I wrap up, I also want to thank a number of folks in the organization, and because there's some personal information here, I have to be careful about how I present it, but we've been all working together on the work comp reform. The comp process in the state of California is challenged. We have some ability to control those pieces in-house, and we haven't been fighting against each other. We've been fighting for better, and we've been trying to figure out what that looks like. But the Chief Bailey and his staff, Melissa and Candace, we made a huge difference in somebody's potential livelihood and life, just in the last week. We've been doing wellness physicals on suppression folks for how long, Chief? Yeah, at least a decade, I'd say. But we haven't been doing them in all of our people. And we have leaders in the organization, they know who they are, and if I call them out, then it would be a little too specific, but help bring attention to the fact that we need to do that on more folks than just the suppression folks. That happened, we found a significant issue that then found itself right in the middle of a broken system that Chief Bailey, Melissa, and Candace fought to make right. And because of that, I truly believe that collectively we saved somebody's life. So thank you, Ty and Melissa and Candace for not running. I know at times it feels like we've been at a rub trying to get change, and it's just because we're all fighting for better. And it was totally manifested in what we did this last week. So thank you, sir. And thanks to everybody who played into that. So I also just want to wish everybody a good Memorial Day and remember what it is for, to remember and honor those servicemen and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. That allows us the benefit to stand up here and give each other reports like this. So with that, unless there's any questions, I will conclude.
Thank you. That's a great report. Appreciate you. Okay, let's move on to President's, wait a minute. Committee and delegate reports. We start with executive committee. Next meeting is to be determined. We'll go on to communications Center JPA, DC Wagman again.
Good evening again, President Clark and Board of Directors. The JPA Dispatch Board last met on May 23rd. In attendance was Assistant Chief Wilson, Folsom Fire, Deputy Chief Mike Taylor of Sacramento City Fire, Deputy Chief Dan Quiggle, Consumnes Fire, and myself. There were two action items that morning, both of which were unanimously approved. The first item was our preliminary budget for fiscal year 22-23, totaling $12,325,746. It is an 11% increase from the previous year, but not projected to increase next fiscal year. They did a 2-year projection. The next item was an amendment to the Chief Executive Director contract, naming Assistant Chief Josh Freeman of Consumnes Fire as the next Chief Executive Director over the Communications Center, replacing Deputy Chief Bear, effective July 1st, 2023. That concludes my report. Unless you have any questions for me, the dispatch board will meet next on June 13th, 9 o'clock in the morning at the Metro Fire Boardroom.
And there's no questions. Thank you, Chief. Have a good Memorial Day. All right, Director Wood is next on the Finance and Audit Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance and Audit Committee met tonight, had a fairly full agenda. And we got some good information. We had an award, award following RFP for our audit services that we do, people that check our finances. And that was awarded to the Dowie and Associates on a 3-year contract with options for two 1-year periods. We had a presentation by Aaron Castleberry on the capital improvement program. We learned that the 5-year capital improvement program is currently scheduled out at about $200.5 million. Of those projects, we are looking at going forward with 14 of them in the 23-24 year at a cost of about $38.6 million. So over the next 4 years, we're going to have to come up with about $161 million to finish fully fund these various projects. Lastly, Mr. O'Toole gave us a presentation on the 23-24 preliminary budget, which the full board will get next week. And I'll just give a couple of little highlights. Our general fund revenue in the preliminary budget scheduled to go up about 11.9 million. But on the other side of the ledger, our general fund expenditures are going up by 21.2 million. What that does is between 22-23, as we end this year, go into the next year, our reserves drop from 14% to 12%. That 14% represents about a 2.5 month cushion for the district. And they further erode. They continue down, projected after this next fiscal year, 24-25 down to 9%. And they'll continue at 9% for the 4 years after that, with 1 year, 26-27, they're projected to drop down to 8. That gives us less than a month cushion. That's something we all need to be aware of and be conscientious of as we go forward. And that's the end of my presentation. Oh, excuse me. Our next meeting is set for July 27th, 2023 at 5:30.
Right. Thank you, Director. Policy Committee, Director Costa.
Thank you. Nothing to report. Our next meeting is to be determined.
All right. Thank you. Next, we go on to board member questions and comments. I will start with Director Costa.
Thank you. Just a couple comments, Chief. Thank you and your staff for all you've done to bring us forward the proposal we had tonight. I think it was a great effort. That gets us to where we need to be. Phase 1 and phase 2 should start to see some positive results. So thank you for all your efforts there. And Firefighter White, thank you for all your passion in your presentation today, and for highlighting lessons learned. And I look forward to next steps on recruiting. And I was going to ask you earlier about, what can the board do to help? And it's probably to stay out of your way. So we'll try to do that. But thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All right, let's go to Director Sheets.
Just a couple of things. I just wanted to welcome Marnie to the board and the new 12 probationary firefighters to the organization. Also like to recognize the crews for the amazing water rescue. And with that holiday weekend, I wish safety to our members and crews out there and the public. And that hopefully everybody has a nice holiday weekend. That's all.
Thank you, Director. Director Sailors.
Thank you, President Clark. I do have something I would like to talk about tonight. We've had so many positive things happening in this year. And this work that we have all been doing, and the positive changes, the creative changes, the amount of, I call it think tank, that we've all been doing to bring these creative and thoughtful changes to help create new direction for the EMS and for the direction of this fire district, to not only help us save money, but to help the EMS direction go in a whole new direction. And I think the changes that will continue to come, and we will continue to talk about those. But one thing I think that we have not been talking about is our investigation unit. I've been hearing that they are overworked and understaffed. And I would like to challenge everyone to consider thinking the same positive thoughts and changes in getting our investigative units up to speed in the same professional manner that everything else is going in these positive directions. Let's help them not get overworked. Let's get their staffing levels up so that we don't have to mandatory them back. Because that in itself is a very stressful job too. So everything else is going so positively with the staffing. So let's get the investigators going in there too. Other than that, stay safe this weekend. Let's get the helicopters up there flying on the river, but stay safe. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Director. Next, go to Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firefighter White, thanks for stepping up in response to, my desire to create more work for you. But I appreciate what you did and what you said. Thank you for being here. To everyone that was involved in getting the proposal together, the service delivery, 6 weeks ago, we were talking about this issue and we kind of collectively came with, I know it's been talked about longer than that, but it just seemed to have gotten thrown together about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and the task was go fix it. And you guys all came up with a very big lift to do something that has some great potential for everyone in our agency. So thank you for everything. Everyone that worked on that, thank you. I appreciate being out there and seeing the graduates. Congratulations to them. Look forward to them having long careers. Welcome to Marnie, like Director Sheet said. Look forward to working with you and hopefully the 9 of us cats aren't too hard to hurt. Not lastly, but want to say thanks to 522 and everyone that participated in the celebration of life for Matt. It was a great event and great send off for an absolutely wonderful human being. Lastly, June 24, mark your calendars, Firefighters Burn Institute has luau on the lakes, used to be the I can't remember. Tropical Affair, yeah. But it's over at Hagen Oaks. We're not over at Sutter anymore or Shriners anymore. We're over at Hagen Oaks. We'll start at 5 o'clock. You get your tickets online at ffburn.org. There's a month to plan for, so get it on your calendar and get there. You can't support a better organization. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. Next we go to Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to tag team on every comment that my fellow directors have made and concur and with all the thanks for everything that was mentioned. From all the new hires, and welcome Marnie, nice to see you. Down to the acknowledgement of the support and participation in the celebration of life for Matt Kelly. And I'd also like to acknowledge many folks in this room also knew another firefighter with us, Mike Johnson, 522 rep, and very, very active in the labor world, and a former, I worked with him as captain at Sac City. So we tagging with what Representative Matt Cole said, we've lost 2, but we are gaining more. So it very much is a cycle. So I'd just like to acknowledge that cycle. And a little bit more lighthearted, I need to say a big thank you to Captain Manfredi. I followed up with him on his presentation about the behavioral health that he gave to this board. I had an excellent meeting, just sit down, kitchen table conversation with him and many other folks at Station 32 just the other day. And I really appreciated them taking time and sharing thoughts. So there you go.
All right, Director Weber. Thank you, Director Weber.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I'd like to thank, first of all, the chief, his senior staff, and 522 for all of the hard work in bringing this proposal to us. I think we all understand it. It potentially could be a Band-Aid, but it's a good Band-Aid right now. We're doing something, and I appreciate all of your efforts. Secondly, all of you folks know this, but I come from a rescue background, so I got a chance to go out to the AutoX today, and it takes a little bit to impress me, and it is very, very, very impressive. These kids that are now instructors all came through at one point or another through 21. Chief Lozano, Captain Rice, or excuse me, White, same thing. They came through as very, very young individuals, but to see this entire group grow up to be extremely professional, extremely well trained, and to listen to them spit out the information I used to spit out. It just a very, very proud moment to see that. And I agree with Chief Cole. We definitely need to support this. Folks from Sparks, Nevada were down here. Quain Hart, Consumis. I mean, we had a lot of folks from a lot of different agencies out there coming to Metro Fire to be trained in auto extrication. So this is truly an eye-opening experience for, I think, certainly this board. We need to keep supporting this because we are on the map with this. So I thank everyone for all of their efforts. All of you kids that are not kids anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. So finally, first of all, I'd like to welcome Marnie Rickberg as our board clerk, and also Gary for all the work she's doing to bring her into Metro Fire in the right way. And also I'd like to really thank Chief and 522 for the work that they did on Director Kelly's celebration of life. It was wonderful, well done. Everything else, I agree with all the other comments. Thank you everyone for their presentation and their hard work, and I'm really glad that we got this issue resolved. Well, not resolved, we're doing something. It's like we said, Director Weber just alluded to it. It's like a Band-Aid, but I think it's more than that. It's we're taking action. We had an issue, we put our heads together and you know, we're making things happen. So I'm glad to see that. With that, I want to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day. And like Chief Cole mentioned, remember what it's about. It's not just about going out there and picnicking and all that. It's to remember those that have fallen in the defense of our country. Finally, we're gonna go on to we're gonna recess to closed session, and once again, have a good one.
We do.
Oh.
Yeah.
I tried to say it there, I just, I'm losing my voice, but at least I got it across.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to that. I volunteer. Probably do.